On this episode of Narcissist Apocalypse, we talk with a survivor named Doug. And Doug was in multiple long-term toxic relationships and is a survivor of generational trauma. It's a story of addiction, codependency, isolation, broken bonds, and doing the hard work in the aftermath. Welcome to Narcissist Apocalypse, a podcast that gives a voice to survivors of toxic relationships. I am Brandon Chadwick, but my friends call me Chad, and thanks for tuning into this episode. So what is a narcissist, you may ask? Well, for the purposes of this podcast, we refer to a narcissist as anyone who has displayed a pattern of behavior that shows a limited capacity to appreciate others' perspectives. It is that simple. And now, before we get to our episode with Doug, I just want to first thank everyone in the Narcissist Apocalypse community for listening to the show and sharing your thoughts by email, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Also, a reminder, if you have not left us a review on whatever podcast service you use, Spotify, Apple, Google, Stitcher, CastBox, etc., please leave us a 5-star review because it helps out the show when it comes to ranking. Now, if you have not been to our website recently, please do go there if you want to be part of our show at narcissistapocalypse.com. Top of the page, it says guest form. Click that button, it takes you to guest form. Fill it out, and we will go from there. But another way to be part of our show is to also go to narcissistapocalypse.com and to be part of our Letters to Our Narcissist compilation episode. On our webpage at narcissistapocalypse.com, you'll see a button on the right side of the page. It's floating around. It says send voicemail. It records up to 5 minutes. I almost had to spit that out there. Having trouble today. If you need more than 5 minutes, record twice. You need more than 10 minutes, record 3 times. We are accumulating all of these letters for a volume 5 of our Letters to My Narcissist episode. And if you don't want to read the letter yourself, send us an email at narcissistapocalypse@gmail.com if you want me or my old pal Melissa to read your letter instead. What else is going on at our website? I am glad you asked, everyone. At narcissistapocalypse.com/courses, we are now offering high conflict parenting courses that are provided to us by Online Parenting. And many of these courses we are offering were created by Bill Eddy, who is an expert in this field. He is a social worker. He is also a lawyer. He educates lawyers and judges across the country about high conflict people. And now, everyone, he has created some parenting courses too to help you through divorce and to help support your children too. These courses are the most widely recognized courses by family courts across the country. So if you want to support the show and are looking for guidance, please do go to narcissistapocalypse.com/courses. And our Patreon. We got more people on our Patreon this week. We had a free episode last week with James, which was a great episode. Canadian James. Today we have Canadian Doug on the show, but we had James last week, and he talked about growing up with an alcoholic parent as well as a narcissistic mother. That episode is free. It's on our Patreon. You can go listen to it right now. We also have follow-up episodes on there. We also have episodes that never made it to air. And then we have some weird episodes with Melissa and I where most of the time we just chit-chat with each other, but we'll talk about something. Sometimes it's a movie. We've done 50 Shades of Grey. We've done, I think we did Twilight. We've done an episode of Degrassi. And I think we might be doing an episode of South Park. Yes, we're doing an episode of South Park. Why? Because for the last few seasons, there's been a storyline where Eric Cartman actually has a girlfriend, and it's a very abusive relationship, and they discuss the abuse. And there's one specific episode that is fantastic where they discuss it. So I think we're going to do that one next. And what else do I have down here on my list? we're going to go right to the episode. But before I get there, let me just say that, the sound quality on this one isn't the greatest. I did my best. Sometimes when we talk to people, we're on the phone and you don't really know until after the quality. And I've done my best to kind of fix it up to where it is. So please do bear with me and the sound quality. I apologize about that. And I just really want to give a big thank you to Doug. I mean, we covered a lot of stuff in this episode. I don't want to ruin the episode for anyone, but, we discussed a couple relationships. We discussed generational trauma. We discussed the relationship between him and his son, and how, his son has to go down the same road that he did, and how, like, that behavior has been passed on from what he's seen from before, and how a parent acts. And, things happened in this story where a lot of what he's going through, his son is going through at the same time. So it's a really interesting episode. Doug is very quotable. And he's just so Canadian that I love him, and that's the best way to put it. Thank you, Doug, for being on here. We haven't had a man on the main podcast in a while, so big thank you. And that we covered a lot of stuff, and the healing part as well at the end. Stick around. I mean, he's a quote machine. So thank you, Doug, for being on the show today. And now it's time for me to get out of my way and your way, everyone. Here is my conversation with Doug. Welcome to Narcissist Apocalypse, everyone. With me today, I have Doug. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I am doing pretty good. We've been chatting for a while. We're both Canadian, so we had a little bit of a Canada talk. And
sure.
I as we both know, I'm from the center of the universe here in Toronto, which is going to annoy you.
And I'm on the wannabe side of the center of the universe.
That's a Canadian joke for anyone who's not Canadian listening, because the rest of Canada thinks that everyone in Toronto thinks that they live in the center of the universe, but they just have us all wrong. Anyway, I'm happy you're here with me. It's 10:39 p.m. Where I am. I got a cup of coffee. This is a really Canadian episode already. I got a cup of Tim Hortons next to me, and I'm going to talk to Doug. And Doug, I just want to thank you for being here. And I'm rambling, and I'm going to get out of my way and your way, Doug. The floor is now yours.
Well, my pleasure, Brandon. So my story is kind of a two-part story. And it begins, I was in a long marriage. I was in a marriage for over 20 years, in a 25-year relationship with my ex-wife. She grew up in a small town in northern reaches of Alberta. And, I met her when we were still kids, and the world was a different place. And, there were signs when I was with her, even young, even just starting out, where I wasn't exactly certain what was going on, but there was definitely indications that, there were some issues that she was dealing with, even at that level. She struggled with rages. She would get very angry, almost uncontrollably, at times, and seemingly little things would set her off. And when we were going through the dating process, I remember there was one incident where that stands out in my mind to kind of put this in perspective. I had worked for a company that had laid me off, and it was fairly common. I for this company, I'd worked for them for a number of years, and it was 9 months on, 3 months off, and I had just got laid off that day, and I went to go see her, and her mom was there, and she laid into me a little bit about how somebody my age shouldn't be unemployed. You got to get a job, and on and on and on. And at the time, I was a different person then. I was just like, I don't need to take this crap. I mean, this just happened. I'm not lazy. And anyway, it just kind of blew up, and I walked out. But that was the first red flag that I can think of in that relationship. And I probably should have ended it then, but living in a small town, it was kind of, you just kind of hang on. There's not a lot of choice. So as we grew up, we both went back to college, and we moved to Edmonton, which is the capital city of Alberta, as you know. So we both were going to college, and we moved in together. And through that course of those 2 years, we grew together, and there was always good times. I can't say everything was bad, but I know there was one incident, that occurred when there was a pub night. I was going to college, and there was a pub night, and I went out and with my friends, and so my best friend, who still is in Edmonton, and he wasn't going to college, but when we of course we drank a little too much and came home, and when I woke up in the morning, she was like, "Where's the car?" And I said, "Well, I didn't bring it home. I didn't drive, And she proceeded to hit me square in the chest, knock me out cold. This kind of sets the stage for the relationship, because we referred to that as the heart punch incident, for the duration of our relationship together. And how it was dealt with was, it was laughed off. It was, ha ha ha, isn't that funny? You pissed me off, so I hit you, and next time don't leave the car there. Was kind of the message that was sent. This set the table for the rest of our 20 plus years together. I mean, the rages continued. She suffered from addiction issues. I mean, and I'm going to just jump in there and say, some of the way that I dealt with those addiction issues by joining her. I mean, specifically, there was a lot of alcohol in our lives, and wasn't helpful, nor was it healthy. And over time, that took its toll. But
at the time, did that just seem like a regular thing to do? Like, there's no questioning about, we're just going to drink. We're drinkers, so this is kind of what we do. This is how we get along.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly right. And it's systemic in the culture of sometimes in northern communities. I mean, I'm generalizing. I know I am, and I'm not saying that. In this particular incident, it was pervasive. I mean, everybody drank, and it was not uncommon. And looking back at it, and now that I have kind of got myself into a way more healthy position, I can say, looking back, I mean, it was persuasive. It was in every aspect of your life. It was in every celebration, every Christmas dinner, every Thanksgiving dinner, weekends in the summer. I mean, people drank, and inevitably people would fight. And it wasn't just us. It was, whole reaches of friends and family, and not that there weren't healthy people that knew what to do with it. It's just, that wasn't the people I was associating with at the time.
But in a way, it was like the culture that you were in. There's nothing within that culture that says this is out of the ordinary, and you probably don't even realize it's out of the ordinary until you move somewhere else.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
And the other thing to put on top of that, my dad was military. Mm-hmm. And for anybody who has been in a military family, it's an issue. And moreover, it's an issue in my own family. Both my uncles, who have since passed away, died with complications due to alcohol. And my aunt, who lives in California, has been 30 years sober. She hasn't thought it out, but she was an alcoholic, and my own mother has, crossed the line on occasion. She's not a drinker, but my father has passed away a number of years now. They got it under control. It's not that it wasn't in our house, and Dad and would certainly have a beer, but it wasn't all consuming like it was in my cousins' homes or with my aunt and uncles. And so it was a culture that I was used to, and so it wasn't uncommon.
Yes, so it's fair to say that you were raised around drama or chaos, and being around that is way more comfortable than being around quiet at that point of your life.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely what I was used to. Some degree of chaos all around me all the time. That's correct. And so anyway, moving forward in our relationship with my ex-wife, we had occasion to move away from Edmonton back to the lower mainland area of British Columbia. And I remember at the time, it was an exciting time for us. We were going to get married within the year. And I remember telling her, I said, if we make this move, we're a long ways away from your family. And are you going to be okay with that? Because, it's not like we hop in the car and a few hours later we're at your family's place, and we're not. Drive to the airport, couple hours flight, and then another 3-hour drive from Grand Prairie to where we live. That's how far it is. It's a long ways away. So we're going to be missing Christmases and birthday parties and weddings and all the other stuff that goes along with it. And at the time, everything was I'm excited to do this. Let's get on with our life. And so we got married, moved out. We still were paying off student loans and trying to make a life. And she got a job as a travel agent, and she had an opportunity to go on what they call a fam trip. And what that was is often tour companies would offer accommodations or trips to travel agents to try to increase sales. Basically, it's a perk for the industry. And she had a chance to go on an Alaskan cruise, and I remember at the time it was $750. Well, given our situation at the time, that might as well have been $1 million. We had no way of paying that. And like I told her, I said, love to send you, but maybe next time there'll be opportunities in the future, but right now we just can't afford that. And I said, that's just to get on the boat. After you're on the boat, you have to pay for your own food, you have to pay for your own drinks, everything else is extra. And I think the exchange rate on the US dollar at the time was 65 cents, something like that. And rather than making the mature decision and saying no, she went to her parents to get the $750 to go, but she would have to come up with the remainder of her expense money. And I was upset about that. I was really upset. And, and I told her, I said, this puts us in a really hard position. We just don't have the money. You're going to be going on this trip on a scarcity budget. There's just no way. But she went, and she racked up the credit card. I remember getting a phone call from her saying, you need to put more money in the bank. And I said, I got news for you. There is no more money. It's out. Anyway, she come home, and we seemed to be able to talk that through. She was upset, but on the same account, we seemed to get through everything. A month later, we'd always wanted kids, and a month later, she was pregnant. And it was a very happy day. I was excited about that, and always it was something I was really looking forward to. Becoming a dad, it was something I always wanted in my life, and that was day one. On the second day, she had to tell me that she had an affair or slept with somebody on the cruise ship. And I just remember I remember going numb. It's that fight, flight, or fawn type of response. I blanked out. I can't even really recall what I was feeling. It just kind of slowed down in time, and I didn't really know what to do. And it just really kind of stunned me for a while. And I will admit that, you know, when I finally kind of woke up, I had no answers to that question. I just kind of, it took a long time for me to kind of formulate a response. And how I responded was that, well, I don't care. I want to be a dad. This is my chance, or this is my opportunity. And I move forward and swept it under the rug.
Did you put up any stink about it at all, or were you afraid of rage if you did, and it was just one of those things like the heart punch where it's like, I did it, what are you going to do about it?
Well, she was remorseful, but on the same account, what happened was as I got, the blame shifting started when I was told, like, you know, well, you did insert something here. I mean, I can't even remember what it was. I went down to I was working for a company at the time that sent me down to Seattle. I had gone down to Seattle, but those expenses were being reimbursed, you know, so it's not the same. They weren't, you know, or, you know, there was a blame shift on the whole thing. And, you know, she was justifying her behavior. I now realize at that moment, that's when the relationship ended. It just took another 20 years to kind of finally fall apart. And, you know, over the course of the next 20 years, it was just bad behavior, and, you know, a point of, I didn't care. I really just did not care about what she did, who she did it with, what she was doing. In a way, throughout, excuse me, throughout this relationship, throughout the 20 years, the most important thing to you at this point was you're a dad. And my son. And your son. And you don't want to destroy that in any sort of way. And in a way, you just kind of laid down and you didn't put up a stink, and you just kind of went with what was going on. Were you feeling, did you challenge anything, or were you just like, this is what I have to do to get through? No, I challenge things. I mean, you can't swallow that much pain without it coming out somewhere. I mean, there's no question. There were certain things that I would do that were designed to let her know I was hurting. Didn't want to lose my son, and he is my son. Not that I've ever had any genetic tests or anything like that to prove it. I don't care. He's my son. So that's just the way it goes. And one of the things that happened out of that is that it took me a little while to bond with him. And, you know, everybody tells you it's the most great day of your life. You'll feel like a dad. And when I didn't instantly have that connection, of course, I had somebody to blame right away, you know. And 6 months later, when the next 6 months when I bonded with my son, I mean, there was more love and connection than I ever had with another human being. Needless to say, it kind of developed into maybe a little codependency on my part, but on the same account, I mean, you know, I just love that child and still do. And so over the years.
So what was the, I guess, the beginning of the end of your marriage? Like, what had to happen for that to happen? For everyone listening, you know, we're telling two stories here, you know, and just so you know, this story that we're telling is really the precursor to the, you know, what's the best way? The meat and potatoes of everything. Yeah. But this plays a big role into
self-discovery and, and a big lesson for everyone. So I just wanted to state that for everyone.
Sure. And I think people can, kind of imagine what had gone on between that. I mean, it was fighting, it was bad behavior, on both parts. I'm not innocent in that. Often I would be told that she was, with somebody else, and, I didn't care. I just really didn't. Whatever, as long as it wasn't. But what precipitated, what brought us to the end of everything was actually when my son graduated from high school. He moved into his own place with his girlfriend, and they were starting out. And that really got me to a place where he's safe and he's gone, and she can't take him from me, because that was always, one of the threats that she would use. I'll take all your money. I will take your son from you. We'll never see him again. And there was some validity to that. She could have disappeared back up into northern Alberta, and it would have been very difficult to make that work. And so there was some credibility to her threats. And
you did what you had to do to survive.
Yep, did what I did to survive. That's correct. That's the way I look at it. So when my son finally moved out, we were coming off a pretty big timeout. I had called a timeout. I was getting, at this point, I had done some self-discovery. My blood pressure was off the charts, but I started to be healthy. I quit drinking, and I did quit drinking cold turkey for a very long time, for over a year. And I was always told, "What do you think? You're better than me?" She raged on me one more time, called me a whole bunch of names, stupid, tearing me apart. And I said, "That's the last time you're doing that." And we had called a timeout, and I moved out for about a month and a half. We tried to get it back together, but it just really had come to a part. And the final straw happened when we were out camping. And fortunately, we're on the West Coast here, Brandon. We were camping on Thanksgiving weekend. And she started raging on me about my cousins and whatnot. And I said, "You got to stop. You're making me angry. I'm getting upset. I'm not putting up with this behavior anymore. It's done. Get it under control." We were with friends. I was very calm about it. But when we got back, I said, "That's the last time you're doing that to me. It's over." And so I proceeded to find my way out. But when we started going through divorce type proceedings and breaking up, I wanted to do it amicably. That was not going to happen, so I was forced to go see a lawyer. And my lawyer told me, "Yeah, I'll take your case, but you need to go see a counselor because you have zero boundaries." And I remember being taken aback by that. "What do you mean I have no boundaries?" "I have boundaries," and only to find out there is no such. I have zero boundaries. They don't exist. And any boundaries that I do have are vaporous. And my counselor at that time, she said, "You have to take some time to heal." Well, I did not heed that message, and I found somebody.
How soon after?
Very quickly, about maybe a month after all that.
So after 20 years.
After 20 years.
How long? So did you continue with therapy before you met the person, or after you met this person?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I sure did.
Okay.
And what's weird about this story is I was actually healing while I was going through this. So maybe there's that silver lining in that cloud, so to speak.
So what year did this relationship begin?
Sorry?
What year did this relationship begin?
2016.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I met this person, and I'll back up a minute here. After I moved out, I made a commitment that I would make sure that the bills were paid at the house. She does work. It's not like she doesn't work. She makes a decent income, but I do make more money than her, and I did not want to burden her with that. I said, I will take care of the mortgage. I will make sure the bills are being paid and that until this thing is settled. And I said for 6 months. And within a couple of weeks, she had reconnected with a ball friend and he had moved back in. And again, I'd already been groomed not to care. I did not care even my therapist and my lawyer said, "You're doing what? Why are you paying this?" I said, "Because I made a commitment and I'm not changing that. I will live up to that commitment. It's important to me that my son sees that I'm treating his mother fairly." That was really what I was worried about through this. But on the same account, I didn't like to be alone. I was wondering why, why does the world, there's got to be somebody out there for me. And so I connected with somebody on a dating app. And that's when the fun began, shall we say. Things progressed very quickly. I mean, the night that I met her, call it chemistry, call it whatever. I mean, there was obviously an immediate spark. She was shy. She was very reserved. I was told that she was coming, she was in separation as well. And she was everything that my ex-wife wasn't. She was a professional person. She was worked in the medical field as a medical professional. She was a manager at a major hospital. Working on her master's degree. Intelligent, well put together, mother of 3 kids. I was smitten right off the get-go, and she paid me interest. There was the attention that I hadn't received for so many years, and it was right there. Anyway, she was going away for a couple of weeks. She had to go into residence, and so I wouldn't see her for a couple of weeks. But I told her that after she got back, we would connect. And the week following our first meeting, I had occasion to go over and go see her in middle of the week. She had a chance, and she said, "Yes, I'd like to see you." Well, that was kind of the start of everything. It was the sex was instant, off the charts. We were constantly on it, just constantly into each other. I mean, now I can see what love bombing actually means. I mean, that was part of it, but it was instantaneous, and things moved very, very quickly. When one of the things that had happened through all that is that, I knew she was a mother, but seemingly she didn't seem to be concerned about her kids. And I'm not concerned. I mean, I know they were with their father, but on the same account, there was just no attention. It's okay. They're with their dad. They were an afterthought. And to me, and I remember picking up on that, but just dismissing it. That was the red flag that really the first red flag that I missed or did not, that I didn't miss, that I ignored. The best way to put it. And so it just ramped up. We would meet each other. We'd meet in cars. We'd go to hotel rooms. It was just like where I was living at the time. I was living with a roommate. It was not really conducive to that, and she was still living with her husband because it was, I only found out later that she was not really divorced, and so, or separated, so to speak. So that happened for a few months, and I can remember when the devaluation started. It was very subtle. It was like, you're wearing that, or we're going out hiking. What does it matter? I'm wearing sweatpants and jogging shoes to go, or hiking shoes to go on a hike. It didn't seem to matter, but little picking away of different things. And then finally, about 4 or 5 months after we first met, she decided that she had to talk to me, and she said to me that, we both are coming out of these long relationships, and we should take some time to heal and maybe see other people and make sure if this is something that we want to do. I was shocked. I was, there again, there was, I was discarded. It was like I couldn't believe this was happening to me. Given everything that was going on, I thought everything was going really well. And
so at this point, all of this attention is being paid to you.
Sure.
After 20 years, it must feel like, as I say, with a lot of people, like a heroin-like feeling for you.
Yeah.
Is sex used as a weapon in a sense that like it's you're all over each other, like you were younger, and on paper, from her job to being a parent of 3 children and everything, you're sold hook, line, and sinker. This person is me. Is she doing anything like mirroring your? So what kind of mirroring was she doing?
Well, I can recall going, having tickets to the hockey game. No, this is and she wasn't necessarily a big sports fan, but all of a sudden she displayed this innate rabid fan syndrome of the local hockey team out here.
I was about to do go local sports team.
Go local sports team, yeah. And it was I would meet her in her office even, I was, the mirroring itself, I mean, there was all sorts of things. She was like, you're good for me. You're not, her father was a very high-placed professional in her hometown and, very powerful man and dealt with people in political power in office. And so that's where she, I wasn't that. I'm more blue collar, and even though I work in a quote unquote, I don't like these terms, but more white collar position. I'm more blue collar in my approach. My dad was. There's a difference between an officer and a non-commissioned officer. My dad was retired as a master warrant officer in the military. He was. There's a difference between classes and that structure. So, it was like, it was mirroring on that occasion. And, of course, then I was love bombed by like people didn't, your ex doesn't understand you. And, and I get you. And, I love yous just came very quickly within, really weeks of all this going on. They were coming out of my mouth or her mouth. It was very, very quickly. And, but when the discard happened, it was like instantaneous and out of the blue. And I was just left dumbfounded. I just remember going, thinking, what the hell just happened? And for about a week, I was just, I was very needy. I was proving what good supply I was, please let's get back together. I don't understand. I love you so much. I mean, there's these text messages in the middle of the night and, okay, I'll see you, we go and meet for dinner or lunch and, we have to have time to make this work. And so over a course of about a month, I started kind of pulling out of it. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, you have to move on or I wasn't consciously moving on, but it was like one of those things. I stopped that behavior and then I hadn't heard from her in a few days. And then all of a sudden I got a text message in the morning, after not hearing from her, for a few days going, I've made a big mistake. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm so confused. I just want to be with you, but I have to take care of these other details in my life, but I just want to see you and I want to be with you. And bingo. But I just was like, there we go. I just proved exactly what I needed to be. And of course I jumped all over that. And, so from that was 4 months after we met. Within the next month I'd moved into my own place found a place kind of in a neutral site. My son was still living on his own, so he was taken care of. And I had a 1-bedroom apartment. It was just my little spot. It was, place to just kind of go on. And it was really weird how all of a sudden she was there. every day and moving her stuff in. And it's not that I wasn't conscious to it. I was definitely conscious to it. I'm not saying that I liked it and I wanted this to happen. But on the same account, she moved in with me without really saying we should move in together. You know what I'm saying? There's no label on it. And again, I have a 1-bedroom apartment. She has 3 kids. And again, that red flag or that caution light that kept coming on, like, why is she here? Why is she not with her kids?
So how old are her kids?
At that time, they were high school age. Okay. One was 2 were in middle school, so grade 8 and 9, and one was just in grade 10, grade 11. And so it's not like they don't need their mother's attention. And so I remember, she brought all 3 of her kids over, and they spent the night sleeping on the floor. Everybody thought this was fun, and the demented family I had, or the dysfunctional family I had, this just was like, this is fantastic. I remember thinking how much joy I felt when her kids came over and we had popcorn and we watched movies, and it was just like, it was great. It was just a great experience. So that went on, and she just kind of said that she'd live with me, and then on weekends or whatever, her and her husband would figure it out. And I use the term husband because she never was divorced, and as far as I know, she's still married, never did. Dragged this poor guy along with her. And anyway, I just remember, like she would go and stay with her kids on the weekend, or they'd figure it out. But it just didn't go that way. We were together, and her kids were with their dad. And I remember confronting her one time. I said, really? I mean, I love spending time with you, but, you're a mom. And she got upset with me, and then not violently or not angrily, but she said, it's not good to entitle your kids. It's, she had her way of raising her kids, and this is what worked for her and her terms. And, who am I to argue with that? I'm not, even though it's that funny with me, I was compromising my values at that time because, I just could not imagine not being there for my own son. But within a few months of this situation going, my son had broken up with his girlfriend. And of course, he could not move back in with his mother. And so he was very fortunate where he had a mentor who's a doctor who said that encouraged him to go back to school. And my son had always wanted to be a fitness trainer. And so he'd taken his fitness training certificate, but this doctor encouraged him to go on and take his kinesiology degree and could get him into one of the local universities here. And so made the decision to move into a larger townhouse closer to the main town, the big town down the road from us. And we were going to have Brady Bunch. And I just remember being so excited about this, that maybe my son would see what a healthy relationship actually looks like, like with people who actually love each other. And the original arrangement was I was moving in she was moving in with me, and her kids would come and stay, split time between their dad and her. Well, very quickly, she turned on my son. Very, very quickly. I felt the tension. I knew it existed. I could feel it off my son. I could feel the underlying anger from her. And, that didn't work out so well. And I remember just that feeling of walking on eggshells all the time and just hoping things would work out and, cleaning madly, making sure no dishes were out of place, that, laundry was done and folded for everybody. I went above and beyond trying to make sure that things were going to work out. And of course, that's just a futile exercise, guys. Don't try.
Did your son verbalize that, like, he didn't like your new girlfriend, and did she verbalize that she didn't like your son? And sorry, continue.
Not in those terms, no. My son is very close, plays his cards close to his vest. He learned from the best to keep his emotions intact. You're okay to hold the old adage of men don't feel is all, quite frankly, bullshit. I don't subscribe to it. Guess what? We cry, we feel pain, we feel anger, we feel shame, we feel guilt, we feel all the emotions that human beings feel. But much like I was, he was groomed and conditioned. It's all right to be angry, but it's not okay to feel anything else. And he never once said anything to me, and very quickly he fell into a relationship with somebody that was extremely toxic, that moves forward, that where he ended up trying to do himself in a couple of times in this toxic relationship. But he moved in with this girl within a few weeks or a few months of us being in this situation. Also, I never saw him again. How she verbalized that situation to me is that I spoil him. You're just entitling him. He's taking advantage of you. You're not doing him any favors. He needs to learn some of these lessons on his own. And I'm looking at this in the lens differently. At the time, there was probably some truth to that, where, I was probably trying to do too much, but on the same account, you have to let people experience their experiences and learn from them. But on the same account, I would support my kids going to school. That's kind of where I was at. Finally, she came to a point where she forced the issue. It was either him or her, and I remember looking at her and said, I just recall just being in a state of just disbelief of, I can't believe this is happening to me. You're forcing me to choose. And in the middle of all that, she could see the anger, not the anger, anger, suppressed anger, but it was just like, I can't do this. I can't make this decision. There's a no-win decision. You're asking me to choose between you and my son. My son and I moved in here. I'm trying to figure out a solution to compromise. When I finally had to tell her, I said, I'm sorry, but my son is not leaving. If this isn't working, you're going to have to leave. My son did not know this had happened. He'd already somewhat moved out. He wasn't certainly there very often. He didn't. Why would you want to be in some place where you're made to feel very uncomfortable? And so she got really upset. And I remember the Super Bowl night of 2017. And I told her, I said, if you're going to leave, you have to leave. I can't ask my son to leave. It's not going to happen. And so she flew into a rage. She started, fine, I'll come and get my stuff. I'm out. My kids are gone. And she packed up everything and she left. And I left the house. I just needed to unwind. I kind of found some place to go and just kind of detach from all this a little bit. I had blocked her phone number just so I wouldn't be inundated. And when I checked the messages, I mean, there was literally hundreds of messages and different things, different. I didn't read them all, but everything from, I can't believe you're doing this to us, to please don't shut me out, to I want you back, to, to criticizing my son, the whole deal. And anyway,
so she would fly off the handle and rage at you in one message, and then in the other one she was the complete opposite, and then she'd just go back and forth. And just so everyone knows, even when you block someone on your phone from the phone calls, you still get the voicemails.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And you still get the text messages. And a lot of this was text messages. They just go into a different folder, a blocked folder. Yeah. And so that's where they were stashed. And, so, I mean, I remember at the time going, this isn't right. I shouldn't be this fine. Just move forward, move on. But I was love bombed again. I mean, I was the heavy. Shall we say, it wasn't a B-52. Shall we say it was, still World War II era love bombing at that point. and we pulled it back together again, moved out with his girlfriend, and we just seemed to get along okay. Well, what was problem that was happening is that I'd lost but I'd lost connection with my son for this relationship at that point. On the same account, I kept reaching out when he would reject that, would hurt, guilty of being a covering codependent here, as I understand that term to mean to apply to me. And yet I was able to explain it by he's got to grow up and learn something he's lost on his own. Well, by that time he quit school. Of course, he didn't have the support unit behind him. And so we went on like this for a while.
So in the process of this whole entire situation where we are now, your conversations with him are non-existent. I bet in some sort of way he doesn't trust you, I assume.
Yeah.
Unconsciously he is, even though if he knows or he doesn't know it, you guys are now uncoupled in the sense of he doesn't feel safe around you. So now he's probably telling his new girlfriend, this is what is happening. Not realizing he's about to go down the exact same road you're going down at the exact same time. And because you're the only two people that maybe you can trust, possibly in the world, and now you're apart, he has no one that he's alone. But you don't know that yet. He doesn't know that yet. And you're also alone, but you don't realize fully yet, like, what you're dealing with.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. That's exactly what happened. I mean, these people are skilled at separating you from the ones that you love the most and the ones you trust the most. The reason I only look back now in hindsight and know full well that she was separating me from him because he would be the one that would be able to unmask her the easiest, the most convenient way. And if spoke out, she knew he was a threat to what she was getting. She absolutely knew that. And so as this went on, I mean, it was hills and valleys, lots of good things. This is the thing about it. And anybody that's gone through these types of experiences, there's a lot of good things that happened. There was a lot of fun times where, trips, day trips going to different locations and overnight trips and weekends. And I mean, you get sucked up into this world that this is something I always wanted, is just to pick a spot on a map, go see what it's like, stay there for a weekend, let's go back and just have some fun. And, you don't even realize what's happening. You don't realize that on the other side, all that is good, but it excuses all the little indiscretions, or the little things that are happening to you that you're not even aware of, not indiscretions, but little things that are happening to you that are the gaslighting, the emotional manipulation, the triangulation, everything else that's going on, and the separation from my own family. Through the course of this, I mean, one of the things that I dealt with in the course of a 3-year period, well, I guess 2-year period, it was 2019, my father passed away, my uncle passed away, one of my best friends passed away, and one of my son's best friends passed away, was killed in a car accident at 20 years old. There was all of a sudden a lot of tragedy in my life, which never really existed. And, it was a lot to deal with. And yet I always felt like I could come for moral support, yet there was always that feeling that you were just not getting what you wanted. You needed the support. You needed the person you loved the most to support you. I'm ashamed to say this. I love this person, yet somehow that support when you're going through it, like when my dad passed away, it was always with conditions, seemingly. And, well, I'll do this for you, but remember, we have to do whatever this is, or, there's, I mean, I was, when my dad passed, I was not in a good spot with dealing with it. But on the same account, it took me 2 years to deal with his passing, because these type of abusers also prevent you from feeling grief, from going through the stages of grief and the grieving process. And so it was fun, but on the same account, it was punctuated by these moments of terror, that intermittent reward structure that exists with them. You just never know. But the consistent thing on this was sex, like always sex. And even in the middle of one of the most trying times, when she confronted me about my son and asked me to choose, I remember she seduced me, and that might be hard for people to understand. Between a male and a female, well, how can you can just say no. I don't know how to explain it, other than that somehow I can't. I don't know. I remember the moment that it happened, thinking this isn't right, but I don't want to do this. But seemingly, I just, there it is, and all of a sudden, the world's, we're done, and everything doesn't quite seem so bad. I might lose this. That reinforcement of all that. And, so it was a very, very strange thing. And I remember talking to my counselor when that happened, and I said, I felt like, sex was used as a weapon. And, her eye kind of, it's an interesting comment. You really understand what's going on? And no, I didn't. I had no idea. But in the process of all this too, as I was, in a weird way, was healing from a 20-year abusive relationship with my ex-wife. I was doing all the work. I was journaling. I was going to meditation classes. I was putting in the deep dives on all that. So in a very strange way, it felt like I was in a healing position too. And so, it was very strange, a strange type situation. And so, of course, there would be different things that would happen. I remember one of her favorite tactics to get me to respond would be, she would ask me about some aspect of life with my ex-wife. And I would say, well, this is how it was. And, I'm trying to move on from that. And then when she would say, well, what about this? Or she would ask these leading questions. And I'd say, no, it wasn't like that. And I remember it was always usually in a public spot. And then, I would get annoyed, and then I would just react enough just to make a bit of, not a scene, but just, no, that's not what I mean. And then she would get upset and say, how dare you talk like this in public? And then the silent treatment would come. And she'd walk away, and then I'd end up chasing her around for the evening. And then, finally at the end of on the drive home from dinner or wherever it was, she would lay into me about my behavior. And, just because you're with somebody for 20 years that reacts that way doesn't mean you have to. Grooming, right? And, that would happen quite often.
So were you feeling like you were the problem at this point, that these things were going on, and she's always doing these leading questions to points where it's going to hit a trigger point for you to react in a negative way. She's doing it on purpose, and then she's blaming you for what she knows she's doing.
That's correct. Okay. That's exactly what it was. I now completely understand the term projection. She was projecting our entire relationship. I get it. And on that, a similar episode happened. We were traveling in Washington State, and I'm sure it's okay to say the town, Wenatchee. We were having breakfast, and looking through the window, I see somebody, my old manager from a company I used to work with. He and I are still close. I still consider him a very good friend. And I say, geez, it looks like, so-and-so and his wife walking down the street. But it was so random. Who would think that? And then I look again. I said, that's them. And so they came walking into the restaurant. They're having breakfast. And he's very gregarious. This fellow has a big laugh, and he's very, very just affable, right? He's very, like, hey, Wayne, how you doing? It was, like, how you doing? Good. Blah, blah, blah. And he'd be laughing. And I said, this is my friend, Marie, and we're here. And oh, that's great. And well, enjoy your breakfast. They were on a motorcycle trip around, and they said, go this way. It's a nicer way to get back home. And so we went, but for 20 minutes in the vehicle, I got, how come you reacted that way? How come you embarrassed us in front of everybody? And I was like, I was excited to see somebody I hadn't seen in a couple of years. It was like, this doesn't seem like an appropriate line of questioning. And I remember feeling very stupid about it. I just remember feeling very, well, how did you expect me to react? If you met one of your friends like that, I would expect you to react the same way. But it seemed to, it was always that leading question and allowing me enough rope to hang myself and try to explain it and make it better. But, if I would just sit there and shut up, I probably would have done myself better service. But so many of those incidents happened when, like we went to catch a professional basketball game down the coast with her sons who played basketball in high school. And all of a sudden I got a silent treatment out of the blue, and I didn't know it. I just looked at her and I said, well, I guess maybe you need some time by yourself just to, that happens. It's no big deal. And again, it was like, don't you ever do that again. And don't you ever treat me like that. Don't you ever walk away from me. And I was like, okay, meanwhile, I'm just hooked like hook, line, and sinker. Yes, ma'am. And then, there was, I remember, these are some of the incidents that just grew you, and another one that happened with me was I remember being at a school play. Her daughter was in a school play, and one of the mothers was walking around the hallways. I could not tell you what this woman looked like, but she was filing her nails, walking into walls. That's what I remember about the incident. It was rather humorous. I'm like, I don't know, it's a strange place to file your nails, but okay. And so she comes up behind me and says, did you get a good look? And I was like, she was filing her nails, walking into the wall. Yeah, I guess I did, right? And of course, then all of a sudden, well, your ex-wife is right. You're probably screwing everybody that moves, right? And I was like, oh, down this path again. The amount of sex I've had with strange women is just, if any of the rumors are true, I'd be, Wilt Chamberlain has nothing on me, I tell you. But, it was that type of behavior. And, there's the evaluations that happened, minor discards. And the end of the relationship, the start of the end of the relationship happened when my best friend was coming out to visit. We were going to take her boys, my son, and my best friend. We were going to go on a fishing expedition for a day. It was around the time of my birthday. And so I was really excited for my friend to come in and meet her. And all of a sudden that morning, she says, well, I'm going out tonight having drinks with some people from work and then catching a movie. I said, well, my friend's coming. What the heck? And she didn't come home until 3 o'clock in the morning. I will add on a precursor to this, I'd come home from work one night and her 2 boys were there. And I said, where's your mom? And she said, oh, she's out with friends. So I texted her. I said, well, I'm home now. I said, give me a shout, make sure everything's okay. And again, silent treatment. Didn't come home till 11:30, midnight, something like that. And that silent treatment was the classic, had me going, worried. Is everything okay? Is she out there with somebody else? Maybe she's not, I'm overreacting. All the emotions that go with the silent treatment were engaged. And same thing with the night that my friend came. And so I woke up she came in the door around 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. The night my friend came, and she was upset that I had left stuff out on the kitchen table, and that I'd fallen asleep on the couch with the TV on, and I was like, fine. And I moved out the next day. I just picked up and I don't think I'd have the courage. I really don't think I would have had the courage had my friend not been there. And he was just there being supportive. He goes, yep, I get it. Let's go. Let's do this. I had no place to go. I moved back in temporarily with my mother into my father's old room for a short period. And I broke off contact. I broke off contact for 30 days.
So, so when you broke off contact, were you worried about what her reaction would be at all?
No.
Okay.
No, I wasn't.
So emotionally, when that moment happened, was it your friends being there, like really his courage to help you get the courage to just be like, this is enough, and like if he wasn't there, you might not have done it at all?
That's correct. That's exactly right. I look at that. I've known my friend for close to 40 years. I mean, we went to high school together. We've known each other a long time.
And did you just like that evening, or when he was there, just start really telling him all of the things that had been going on?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
So you really let it all out, and he was just like,
yep.
Doug,
yep,
you're leaving.
Yeah. And he didn't say that. He just said, I'm here for you. And, he was very unsophisticated in his answers, and he listened. Now, we did go back to, she too was from Alberta. We went back one time because they were selling their house that they owned in Edmonton, and that was her first occasion to meet my friend. And I remember at the time she stonewalled that. She just would not meet him. It was and I know I'm backing the train up here a little bit, Brandon, I apologize for that, but she had a chance to meet my best friend twice and blew him off. And that was hurtful to me. And what's strange about that is through the course of the year and a half, almost 2 years of that relationship, I can recall being at work, and I remember typing into Google, when is it time to leave a relationship? And all these different things would come up from different feeds. And I remember one that stuck out with me is one of the things that indicates it's time to leave a relationship is that you're here asking when is it time to leave a relationship. My body was already telling me, and my gut instinct was already telling me that this is wrong. There's something wrong here. One of the things that she did previous to my friend, not meeting my friend, and I'm backing the bus up a little bit again, is that she hit me one time with, what does monogamy mean to you? Well, that means, you're in a relationship sexually with one person, however that defines it for one person. But I guess I didn't give her the right answer. And so she said, well, I'm okay with if you need to be with somebody else, if I'm your primary. And I was like, are you talking polygamy? Or are you talking, or it's not polygamy, but polyamory? Sorry about the wrong use of terms there. Are you wanting to be with other people? Do you want to be in an open relationship? Is that what you're asking for? And I got that. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking what you want. I was like, well, I want to be in a relationship with you. That's what I want, So like every emotional abuser, there is a relationship with the phone. It was only after I broke off the relationship that I went through my pictures, and almost every picture that were at dinner, there's a picture for either texting, talking on the phone, being on the phone. I remember her on the phone a lot. sharing messages with people that she'd send, like we were at a baseball game. Oh, I'm sending this to my brother-in-law. Well, maybe she was, maybe she wasn't. Probably not now that I look back at it. So I was so confused by that. That was the start of the last evaluation, and the discard started a few weeks before my friend came out to go on this fishing trip with me, where she said, perhaps maybe it would be better if we got our own place. And I was like, wow, I didn't see this one coming. And so I moped on that for about a week, and I thought about it. And I said, okay, if that's what you really want. And she goes, no, that's not what I want, but I think that's what you need. And I said, okay. So I made the determination that I was going to go. And then one night she was like, I don't want you to leave. I need you. I want you. I want to be with you. I want to build a life with you. And then within a couple of weeks, the silent treatments and disappearing off the face of the earth for hours at end was at hand. And so when I moved out, I broke up all contact. And I remember a week or two into all that, feeling very good about myself. And like things are getting better. And I got hoovered. Big time. She met up with me. Of course, it was sexual. I kept it in a journal, and I was reading it before I had my conversation with you, and just the overt love bombing messages that were just coming out of her for weeks on that. But she'd already met somebody. That was the weird thing. She actually admitted that she had met somebody who was much older than she was, but that she was already dating it. I remember thinking, I remember telling her, I was like, wow, that didn't take long. You're moving on. But I was stuck in this whole thing. I was stuck in this. I got sucked back in. And, it went like that for a few months. The cycle would repeat and on again, off again, intermittent reinforcement again. She'd come over and stay, and then, leave her kids by themselves now. I mean, they are older, but on the same account, they're still in school. She was living in the place that we had rented or lived together in.
And she's still married.
And she's still married, yes.
And do you even know that yet?
Yeah. And you know what? The thing is, that's true. And I keep forgetting that. The poor guy. I mean, I remember meeting him, Brandon. He's a decent guy. And only looking back in retrospect, I was like, oh my God, you poor guy. Like this empathy that I have for this man and what he's gone through and what she's done to him. She would call him just a lump, like vanilla was her favorite term for this guy. And all he was just a decent guy doing his thing, trying to, go about life, make a living. He did move on. He did meet somebody, and hopefully he's happy, very happy with her. So I feel, but yes, she was still married, and as far as I know, she's still married. I'm sure she's gone through other relationships since I haven't spoken to her in over a year. But neither here nor there. She's still married.
Before we get to you telling us how it ended, you're still going to the therapist during this time. What are you telling your therapist? Are you skirting around it? Are you addressing issues while you're there? Like because, I've gone to the therapist many times in my life where I go and I don't discuss anything that I should be discussing while I'm there. And I'm like, oh, I just wasted my money coming here today. Why did I go? Because it's sometimes like you're going there, but and you have sometimes even when you go to the therapist, you still don't want to deal with your problem. So you go and you talk about something completely different. Was that something that was going on with you?
In retrospect, yes, but I would have to say that I went with full intention and thinking that I was being completely upfront, honest, and truthful. And it's not that we didn't discuss heavy subjects, because we certainly did. But that was my button. It was like, no, everything's good here. Everything's fine here. Like, this is a great relationship. I protected the relationship, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And her and I even went to one session together. And there is a reason why you don't want to take somebody that is an emotionally abusive person to a couples counseling ceremony or session, because they arm themselves pretty quickly. And, I remember that session, and she was just glowing, just saying all these glowing things about me, about what a wonderful guy I am, and how he's great with my kids, and how he just this, first of all, thank you. Second of all, I do have flaws. It's not, there's nobody on this earth that is that's flawless and that kind and caring and gentle and without everything. I mean, I consider myself a nice guy, but on the same account, I mean, this was over the top. And so it just fueled the fire. It really did. And I have a side note question. How good are you at lying to yourself during that time? Oh, I was awesome at it, Brandon. I was so good at lying to myself and just making sure that I told myself lies until I believed them completely. And, I mean, that's part of the healing process, is when you wake up and you realize that you're lying to yourself, and that, you're only lying to yourself and you're only harming yourself. It's when you can be truthful, completely truthful, and rub yourself right down to the bone, and sand yourself down to the wood to rebuild everything. Yeah, the first person you can't escape is, the truth, your own truth. And yeah, that's where you have to start. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So I railroaded you there. So continue.
Yep, no worries. I mean, by this time I'd moved out. I had gone through all this happy, I want you back, but I'll be strong. And I did that for, like I said, for about 30 days. I was watching different, how to get your ex back videos. And, one of the, it actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because I learned about, attachment styles and attachment, learned pretty quickly that I have an anxious attachment style. And so there was good that came of that. But on the same account, all I wanted was this person back in my life for whatever reason. In the meantime, what's on the sidebar, going back to my son, is he's struggling in his own situation. And he had one of his first suicide attempts in this. And I sought comfort. I met my ex-wife and her new man in her life at the hospital while my son's in the hospital. And I reached out to her to let her know what was going on. I just remember the cold feeling of, well, I'll be there, but I can't go in. I won't go in. I kept reaching out, but I didn't know who else to go to. It just seemingly at the time, I craved that. And so it seemed like that gave me hope to kind of rebuild something. And I remember having these just completely disassociated feelings of soulmates and twin flames and, we're going to make this. I just remember just being in this dream world of what this relationship actually was. And it was absolutely just toxic. And she had me where she wanted me. She was getting exactly what she needed. I would buy gifts. I remember taking her on a weekend down to Las Vegas, and it was just anything to make this thing get back. And I just cautiously, and for people that have gone through this, maybe they can relate. It's like you're consciously aware that this isn't right, yet you can't stop. It's the drug addict syndrome, right? It's like you said, the shot of heroin. It's exactly what it is. You know that you're doing something that you shouldn't, is unhealthy for you, but you can't stop. Yeah, so when we got back from Vegas, I had made the determination. She was, I have to walk away. I have to walk away. I knew that I knew that she was seeing other people. I knew that, that this wasn't healthy. And I got the courage to kind of, well, it was, I was listening to an audiobook called Untrue by an author that talks about women's sexuality. And one of the things that's in there is in the audiobook, they say her name, and her name is on the dating website for married people. And I was just like, I got to see this. And no word of a lie, I logged onto this website, and there she is. She's on that website. It was like, oh Jesus! Like, how many more signs do you need that this is just not good, right? And it was. So I went to her office, and I said, listen, this isn't working. We have to move on from each other. She goes, does that mean you never want to see me again? I said, I don't want to see you again unless you think, and I let her off the hook. I said, unless you think there's a future for us together, but otherwise I'm done. And I remember her saying to me, drive safe. And I was like, well, this is what we get after 2 years, is drive safe. And there was a long period of about a month of no contact, and contact that I could avoid. I would get every once in a while get the Hoover text of, I'm thinking about you, or something to that nature. And then I do recall her sending me a song about, a video about saying, you mean everything to me, or something. And it was like, yeah, I'm not falling for this. I felt some strength in myself. And then the big guns came out. As I said, she was a medical professional, and she sent me a text message, and there's something that I have to share with you, and I don't know where else to go. You're the only person I trust. Can I see you this evening? And I said, I guess so. And I was like, wondering what this was about. And she started telling me about symptoms she was having. Well, the symptoms would lead you to believe it was an MS or an ALS diagnosis. And I remember going to an MRI appointment with her. And I remember just feeling horrified for her kids. I remember this sinking feeling of just like, what are you going to do? Like, and, she laid it on pretty thick. I'm not going to live I'm going to have people, taking care of me and wiping my butt and feeding me and doing whatever. I'll just end it. And this is no way to live. And I was horrified, but my therapist later told me, she goes, wow, she had to pull out all the stops to get you back. That is going way over the top. And trust me, I never knew what Dirty John was until afterwards. I knew the story because it was in the LA Times, but I didn't know the story on Netflix until much later, after she was well out of my life. When I saw that, my jaw hit the floor. It was like, oh my God. And yeah, so there I am back. And so when I am back, I really overdid it at that point. She was like, I just need to live my life. I don't know how much longer I got. Da-da-da-da-da. This is a person that when I first met, and this is wrapping this up, this person she would have a glass of wine at dinner. She wouldn't swear, wouldn't curse. Yeah, she was sexual, but didn't seem to have any of these weird vices. When I left her, this was somebody that was, smoking pot, drinking, popping Molly and going to sex parties, doing ecstasy. This is who this person was at the end. And yep, how she discarded me was like she said she wanted to go to a swingers party. And I remember I have to show courage. I remember this is where she got me with this. I have to show courage. This is something that she needs to do. We're not really together, but we're together. You know, well, it was a setup for the most brutal, painful, punishing experience I've ever dealt with. And she had obviously been to these things before. She met up with this guy that she knew fairly well. They knew each other instantly. I, again, just sat there kind of stunned, going, what the hell am I doing here? And it took me a little while to get my bearings about me. And I left, and she came out. Where are you going? I'm leaving. We can't go. You're my ride. I said, well, you better get in the truck with me because I'm leaving right now. And she got back. We got back to my place. I could not let her drive because she was intoxicated. Again, I'm worried about her kids. And so I just remember she went to sleep, and I couldn't sleep, of course. I was just all jacked up, and I cried. I broke down. I was crying. And she goes, I don't know why you have to make this so dramatic. And that's what she told me. And I said, I just remember thinking, you don't get to tell me how I deal with this situation anymore. And so I woke her up very early in the morning. I said, you have to leave now. And that was it. That was the end of the discard. I sent her on her way, never heard from her again. And that is my story. And subsequently to that, I had a very exciting experience. My aunt and I were going back to Europe. We did the old tour of the town I grew up in when my dad was in the service, and we lived in Germany as a kid. And we did Paris and Berlin, and we did this nice tour. But on the flip side of that, when I got back, I broke down. I had a mental collapse. I was in the middle of a panic attack. I thought I was having a heart attack. Ended up in the hospital, and on some antidepressants. I thought that was the lowest part of my life. My son wasn't speaking to me. But I'm here to tell you, things always get better. And if there's any one piece of advice I could give to anybody, is that your body keeps the score. There is a book by that name. Your body does carry that trauma, and you should, there are signs that people that don't take the time to heal will not be attuned to. And my foray into a covert, emotionally abusive relationship, because this person was on the surface it was not the same person that I know. She was well respected. She was always doing the right things, professional person, the whole deal. The image and reality were two different things. Is that you got to do the work. You got to dive in there. You got to feel the feelings. You have to make peace with your emotions and listen to your gut instinct.
So,
because really,
sorry. So when it comes to, I apologize for interrupting.
No worries.
When it comes to now, your partner is gone. The relationship with your first wife is also over.
Yep.
And you start talking to your therapist at this point, and opening up more about what's going on. What are the things that you first start to work on? Because, a big part of our conversation today is really about, your story, and what we kind of wanted to hammer home was like, you went through this traumatic first relationship, and you had all these kind of issues, and you then didn't deal with them. And then you immediately went into a second relationship only people say, or, we have no matter what, these issues will always pop back up again until we know how to deal with them properly. And so you went right back into it. So I guess for you, what were the biggest things that you had to attack first? I mean, I guess sometimes, when in life, if you're going through whatever emotional issues you have, and then maybe let's say you have an addiction issue, you're like, okay, I'm going to a rehab, but maybe I should go deal with these other things first before I deal with the addiction stuff, because I think it's called comorbidity. I can never say it properly. I'm not going to even try, but you know what I'm trying to comorbidity.
Yeah, comorbidity.
There, that is it. So for you, you had probably a lot of different things, from codependency issues to maybe addiction, little traces of addiction kind of issues. You have stuff that's going on within your family and your relationships with your son that also need to be addressed. Where did you begin?
Right at the beginning, surrendering to the process, right, is really the first step. Is that, when everybody hits rock bottom. My rock bottom was that. I mean, I have been suicidal and had suicidal idealization in my life. In years past, but this was the first time that I knew I was down. I knew I was broken, but I didn't feel that. I knew that I could climb my way back up, or stand back up, rather, and make this better. But it was really surrendering to the process. So the first issues we worked on were family of origin. Is really where it boils down to. You'd mentioned much earlier in this whole conversation about the chaos that was around me. Well, there was chaos. I mean, for people that don't understand what it's like to be a military base brat, and not that my cool thing about this, and I should clarify this, my mom was a hippie, my dad was a soldier, so she refused to live on base. So when we lived in Germany, we went native. We lived in a little village, not anywhere near the Canadian military personnel. Not that they weren't around; it was very close, but it was an experience. But the geopolitical world that existed at that time was much different. I mean, Soviet Union was about to invade at any given time. I mean, my mom always talks about how they would have these drills about evacuating all the non-essential personnel back to Canada. Well, nuclear war doesn't give two shits whether you're in Germany or in Toronto or wherever. You're about to be obliterated. So what difference does it make where you are? Those are things that you deal with in a different way. Also, my sister and my mother have a very, very close relationship. My aunt and I talk about it. My aunt is very much my spiritual guide on this big bouncy blue ball through space. And the best way that I can describe it is emotionally incestuous, and it's a very, very unhealthy relationship. The two of them don't exist outside of the world with themselves. My sister lives in a condo in the same building that my mom does, a floor below. Essentially, she still lives in my mom's basement, now with her husband and two kids. And so there's dealing with that type of, pardon the expression, the only way that it's not exactly accurate in this case, but there's that golden child, scapegoat child type of dynamic. It's not exactly applicable to this, but it kind of explains it for anybody that would understand it. I was always secondary. My needs were not met to the same degree that my sisters were. Not that I had a horrible childhood, because I didn't. And I'm not blaming my parents about this. It's just trauma that exists in a young child that you deal with later on if you don't deal with it then. So, I mean, that ends up being the root cause. So how do you solve that? I mean, you learn how to be your own parent. You learn how to control your emotions. And triggers happen, but triggers will always happen for the rest of my life. But the skill that I learned to deal with the triggers, and hopefully in passing it on to my son now, is that you're enough. You're enough just the way you are. you're okay. You're capable. You're smart. And everybody for the last 25, 30 years of your life that's told you you're stupid, you're ugly, you're fat, you're dumb, you're this. I'm not fat. I'm not dumb. I'm not stupid. I went to college. I take care of myself. I'm not, all that is not true. And so that belief structure that's been pounded into you for so long that you start to believe it's true, you have to start breaking those lies. Like you said, did I lie to myself? I've been lying to myself for a long time. And when you start that self-care, self-talk, self-love, taking care of yourself, and sometimes self-love doesn't mean going out and buying brand new clothes or a new truck or whatever it is that retail therapy. Sometimes it means that, yeah, guess what? I'm taking care of you, and that means getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and going for a run, or getting your ass to the gym, or doing a meditation class, or doing whatever because I care about you enough that you need to heal from this, and you got to put the work in. And sometimes that means I can't do this for you right now. The hardest word to speak in the English language is no, but it is a complete sentence. And, so sometimes no is the best word you can give, whether it's to an employer or somebody you care about. Sometimes no is the only answer you got because you're not capable of doing it. So I like myself. I like where I'm at. I'm healed. Healing, because the journey never stops. But I'm also, a lot of the addictive behavior, a lot of the numbing behavior is subsided, and I'm actually for the first time in a really good spot. In my life, I'm in a good spot where I like where I'm at. I can help my son go through his journey without robbing him from that experience. He gets to feel his own emotions. I'm not interfering in his life. He is getting to experience that. I'm not solving the problems for him. Even today, yet last night I found out my ex-wife's father passed away. There's a man I cared about deeply. I've known him for 30 years. He was a kind and gentle man. I'm not going to let hate hold me back. I phoned her, passed on my condolences, and sent her flowers and gave my best to her family. That's not me trying to interfere. It's just I felt that was the right thing to do, and nor am I looking for a pat on the back. I just feel like I'm in a healthy spot.
And I guess, as we wind down the show here, what words of wisdom do you have for everyone who's been in your spot? I mean, you have generational trauma, you have, 2 relationships with high conflict people. So as far as what people are going through and how you're dealing with healing after, what do you have to say to people?
Well, the only advice I can give it's long and it's been repeated over and over again, but it really goes down to that gut instinct. You know when something is wrong, and if you're feeling wrong, it's not even the universe or God or anything else trying to give you a sign. You know, and you feel it in your body. Well, everybody's been there. I'm pretty sure, sort of being a psychopath, that something is wrong. Something doesn't feel right. Something is off. If you're feeling that, it's probably true. And if it's not true, you're probably better off not exploring that option because if it is true, the pain and the suffering is way worse. I can only tell you it's like jumping into a cold water. I mean, your body thinks it's going to die when you go into cold water. Yeah, and it's uncomfortable and it's painful. But the experience of the healing of the path back is so rewarding. And you just might get in touch with somebody that you really have missed your entire life. The one thing I heard that I heard about people that are emotionally abusive, especially people that use mirroring and triangulation and blame shifting, is that especially when they're love bombing you and mirroring you, they're actually showing you who you really are. And I believe that to some degree. They're showing you exactly what you're capable of. I'm no saint. I've made mistakes, and I will own them all day long and apologize for the hurt that I've caused people. But on the same account, that's not really who I am. That's never who I really was. And, all I can do is do better today and do better tomorrow and try to be a little bit better the next day after that. And keep those that are important to me close enough, yet allow them to go on their own journey. And in the time of, all the craziness that's going on in this world with the pandemic and whatnot, it's tough. But on the same account, there's silver linings to everything. And I think one of the things that, if nothing else, this shows us that what is really important in life, and perhaps maybe we focus on what's not important a little too often. If I had one wish to come out of all this for the world, it would be, I don't want things to go back to normal. I hope things go back to better. How about that?
Doug, you're just a really good guy.
Thank you.
You really are.
So are you.
And, it's been a pleasure talking with you this evening, and I want to thank you for sharing your story with me and with everyone out there. We haven't had a man on the main podcast in a while. We've had some on our Patreon, and I just want to thank you for sharing your story and doing such a good job. And I can't tell you how many times I've written stuff down. You were very quotable, and you let it all hang out, and you were vulnerable with us today, and that vulnerability is going to help a lot of people. So I really, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank you for being here with me this evening.
Well, thank you very much, Brendan, and keep up the good work. I think that your show does help a lot of people. I mean, I feel I've moved to a different stage. I don't, but I do listen on occasion to stories that are interesting. I think one of the underlying themes to anybody that's on your survivor stories is the fact that, these are all good and kind and gentle and wonderful people that, you're not wrong. You're not the damaged part of this. You went through something, and we can, and just, if you can let it go, and trust me, everything I've let go of in my life has claw marks all over it. But on the same account, once you learn to let go of that and you learn to heal and you learn about yourself, I think the world can only be a better place, and you can only be a better person for it. So maybe it's a little too hippy-dippy, but on the same account, I believe that strongly.
Well, Doug, thank you. And for everyone else out there who is listening still, I know you all are. I hope you have a good night.